Team chat. Hold on, let me see.
Okay. Let me just post it on YouTube. Where is it?
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Mad Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Khamer.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to the show. And my friend Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the show. We have a wonderful show. Before we get started, help us out on patreon.com/Mad Mamluks. Also available through PayPal or Zelle, the madmamluks@gmail.com. Help us out in any way you can. Sheikh, welcome back.
Welcome back to you too.
We were off on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sheikh had an important surgery.
Oh, great. We're going to put all this out on the air now, bro. I didn't know we were going to talk about my personal
Sheikh,
life.
it's very important. The listeners have to make dua for a quick recovery. He had wrist surgery. Tell us all about it, Sheikh.
Why are we talking about this?
I
had a bilateral carpal tunnel release surgery.
How does that happen, Sheikh?
Bilateral. So basically, I had carpal tunnel in both hands. And I remember when I was working out, there was a time where I just stopped working out because I woke up in the middle of the night with numb hands all the time, waking up, you know. And then I kind of procrastinated and thought it was a circulation thing. So I was like, you know, 5 years later.
That's what they call it, huh? Circulation problems?
Yeah. And then
You know what else has circulation problems, right?
the heart.
Connected, yeah.
The heart.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, this took a weird
Diseases
guys,
of the heart.
this doesn't befit the guests that we have.
Sheikh, you need some heart softeners. There's good books about it from Sheikh Nuhaim Keller. The heart softeners.
That's your boy, dude.
Welcome to the show.
The funny moment was when Sheikh was recuperating from his surgery coming out of anesthesia. Our good friend Sim walked in. He goes, "Is that Joe Biden?"
So I went into the room and I sat down. He's completely knocked out. He's recovering, and he's like, "Where's Joe Biden? I gotta talk to him."
I had to tell him the hawk, bro.
I think like the whole Palestine thing's been on your mind, so like you want to speak.
Tell him the hawk.
Speak truth to the ruler, as they say.
Maybe you never know.
And then he snaps out of it and he goes, "Why do I have boxing gloves?"
No, what happened was when I went under, I didn't know the surgery started. When I woke up, I was like, "When is the surgery going to start?" That's what I was thinking in my mind. I was like, "Why do I have boxing gloves on?"
So you were thinking of Joe Biden before surgery, mashallah.
Maybe. You never know.
Well, I did tell him to say the shahada before the anesthesia goes in. Just a reminder. Just a reminder, It could be any time.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
Alhamdulillah, you woke up and you came back to us.
Alhamdulillah, bro.
Right.
You're right. Anything could have happened. See, we just made it serious. Anyways, bro, can we introduce our guest, please? This guy has been anxiously waiting. He is already kind of feeling a little weird because we're talking about circulation.
Well, our guest is a man who needs very little introduction. Someone who is an expert in the fields of philosophy and metaphysics, I guess. The Muslim metaphysician. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
TMM is
Wa alaikum assalam. Glad to be here, guys.
So speaking of metaphysician, it's funny because Jake gave an interview today earlier.
I saw that.
What's his name? George Whale?
Yeah.
James Whale.
James Whale, right? And he's like, read that. What's that word? What's that word? And he goes, metaphysical. What? And he goes, what's a metaphysician?
No, were those guys playing stupid, or are they really?
No, they're literally dumb.
They're literally stupid.
Yeah. So Jake goes like, it's dealing with certain truths, right? And he goes, in reality, like, well, what's reality? You try to be smart.
He tried to get slick, right? Yeah.
And then Jake goes, that what is apparent, right? And he goes, okay.
Basically, Jake is explaining to him, saying that metaphysics is the science of studying reality. And he said, "What's reality?" Right?
Yeah. He said, "What's reality?" And I'm like, "That which exists."
Yeah, I mean, it was just really funny because you would think a guy who invites him on the show, especially with the guy with the name, the Muslim metaphysician,
You would have just Googled it at least. I mean, you would have.
yeah.
That dude's format was a little weird. He had people one after the other,
Well,
so it's like
To be honest, I found that was my first time seeing the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found it really weird that the two were sitting so close together. Like, it was just really awkward. Did you find that weird too? Like, he's like almost like
they had a
it's
small
like
camera.
no, it's not just a small camera. I mean, they have a pretty big studio, but it's just the fact they were like right next to
It
each other.
didn't seem cozy looking.
And he-
at it.
Because
and he
isn't
was
that I think it's the same Piers Morgan studio.
It is. It's the
Yeah.
same studio. Yeah.
Talk TV, right?
It is the same studio. So, but it's just and well, why don't we talk about that for a second? So, how did they get a hold of you? Like, why? What was the whole thing?
Why were
behind
you
that?
there?
Yeah, so I got an email from this guy called Johnny. Let's see, sometime last week, and he's the one that does the bookings for, and bringing people on this James Whale Talk TV channel, and I had no idea actually how he got my information to begin with. I was actually trying to figure it out. I'm like, why the heck does this guy contact me out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So I had no idea. He emailed me, and then he also messaged me on Twitter, and he was like, "Hey Jake, just reaching out. I'm Johnny from Talk TV. We'd like to bring you on to James Whale thing." So I looked it up. I figured out what the show was and everything. Replied to the email. Said, "Okay, yeah, I'll come on." But then I talked to Muhammad Hijab a couple days after that. Which I had no idea about that, because I messaged him and I said, "Yeah, bro, I'm supposed to go on this show. Do you know anything about it? Blah, 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 blah." And I talked to him on the phone, and he told me that he gave them my name. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So that what happened was he's been on Piers Morgan's show twice, and it's the same network, so they're all affiliated. And I guess they've developed somewhat of a relationship to where they asked him for names to bring on, and he gave them a list of names, and I was one of the names, and they contacted me. But I had no idea, because I thought it was weird. I was like, why is this guy messing me out of nowhere? And it's because he gave them my name. So
let me ask you. I think some of us are getting the idea that that network is just like kind of milking the conflict.
Oh yeah.
Like, they don't really care about what's happening. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Piers Morgan knows that his ratings and viewership has gone up. And I think like a guy like James Whale, who's probably not as popular as Piers Morgan,
definitely.
is probably trying to also milk that as well too, and say, "Oh, what can I do to cause controversy and get people on?"
Well, he's a shock jock guy, from the get. I mean, that's his whole career. He's been doing it 50 years. I looked into him a little bit more, but definitely, without a doubt, I mean, it's the same network, Talk TV, which, by the way, is associated with Rupert Murdoch, right? So no surprise there. But yeah, they definitely see what Piers Morgan's doing, and I looked into his numbers because I'm interested enough to see. I mean, Piers Morgan already had a big platform, but prior to October the 7th, and what's been going on recently, he had 1.5 million subscribers. So he had 1.5 million, and now he's up to over 2.25 million. So he gained over 750,000 subscribers, almost 1 million subscribers in less than 2 months from covering this.
Yeah.
So the guy's not a genius, but he's not that stupid, right?
Yeah.
He knows what's going on. The reality is there's a gap in the market, and he's filled it. Some Muslims may not like that, but the reality is nobody else is really doing what he's doing on that level. Bringing on pro-Palestinian or Muslim guests to talk about this situation and doing it in the way that he is, right? Having debates with people. None of the other big the media platforms are really doing that. Not to that extent.
PBD, whose show you've been on,
Yeah.
they usually capitalize and they milk this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're
not.
Patrick Bet David's best friend, that BFF, the guy who sits right next to him all the time. What's his name?
Adam.
Adam. he's Jewish, and he's super pro-Israeli, and the other guy, Vinny, he's pretty cool. He's actually knows what's real, and they've gotten into it with. I think the show I saw was with Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks.
Yeah, from the Young Turks.
And he's more balanced.
So Vinny was like pushing back along with Anna against the crap Adam was saying. But anyway, since that show, I've kind of seen them kind of pull back from just discussing this subject altogether, because apparently it's just too much, maybe causes tension between Adam and Patrick. So it's interesting to see how at least Piers capitalizing off of this viewership, and other media outlets or YouTubers who are prominent just kind of pull back and say, you know what, this is just not worth it.
So you know what I also noticed too is that they were probably expecting to have a different outcome, and what they've done effectively is make our position much more palatable. Like, I mean, all you have to do is literally go on there and speak the truth, and people gravitate towards the truth, but regardless of what it is. But before we get there, I just want to say, since we're talking about Patrick Bet-David, right, the whole show, obviously, you know, Jake went on there and with Daniel Hakikachu, phenomenal job. I mean, alhamdulillah, mashallah, not just to throw dirt, but while I was telling him in the car on the way here, I'm like, man, one thing that I noticed, what I was really pleased about, was it wasn't just the way that they presented Islam, but it showed the audience, the people that propped up people like Brother Rashid and Robert Spencer, right, that, they're actually not as knowledgeable as they claim to be. And to me, honestly, what I found more shocking was that out of all the people that were recommended to defend Christianity to Patrick Bet-David, he chose these two people.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like, I mean, over James White, if you would choose like Robert Spencer. Since when was he even evangelizing anything? His main job is just to critique Muslims.
Yeah, that's
right. He doesn't really preach the Bible on jihadwatch.com, right? He doesn't. That's not his job. Like, I thought you would probably bring a real theologian, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, and I think that goes back to the point we were talking about, was that these sources of media that we see now, they're learning that the Muslims have something to say. And it's very not only entertaining, but it's very relevant
and profitable.
Yeah,
it's profitable.
Very
But the issue that I have with Piers Morgan, look, I know a lot. I've heard a lot of Muslims that are kind of in a love-hate relationship, grateful to him. But one thing that I see from him and his network that he works on, they're actually very conniving. Reason being is they bring Muslims on to free themselves from saying that we're not biased, but make the Muslims make them look like fools. So they're actually baiting the Muslims that come in. Now, it's awesome that some of the Muslims that go on do a great job. But you could see their intent of bringing the Muslims in is that, hey, you know what? We want to get the views. We want to change the narrative and keep the narrative, the Israeli narrative. And we're going to do that by cornering the Muslims. And like, if you just look at the Norman Finkelstein and the other dude that was on,
Alan Dershowitz.
And Alan Dershowitz. That was a great. But look how respectful he was to them.
Absolutely.
Norman Finkelstein spoke for 7 minutes, uninterrupted.
Nothing.
Nobody has ever done that
on
from the pro-Palestinian side. The Muslims that have been brought on, right? No one.
They won't.
And people can draw their own conclusions why, but it is what it is. The guy, his parents are Holocaust survivors, right? So, it's
Finkelstein is also, he has this presence about him.
He does,
all right.
Definitely.
So he's slow and deliberate in his speech, and there's a lot of purpose between each word that he takes his time and makes sure that everything is coming out the way he wants it to come out. And it's something that many people, before he's gone on to Piers' show, they warned him, like, hey, this guy Piers will just steamroll. Apparently it looks like some assurances were made in the background that hey, I'm not going to interrupt you, blah blah blah. So it seems like there's Piers at least has been told from his producers or something to give him the ability to speak.
Another person he didn't interrupt as well was that guy Gabor Mate, whatever.
He's another one who's
he's another Holocaust survivor. And it's interesting, and like he said, draw your conclusions as you want. But every single time there's a Muslim on there, it's like boom, boom, like machine gun tactic. It's just, what about this? What about that? And anytime I notice something, whenever you see a Muslim push back and say, well, I'm willing to condemn Hamas if you're willing to condemn Israel. He just starts losing it.
Yeah.
Like the very notion of holding them accountable to their own opinions. And by the way,
They hate that. Yeah.
They hate that.
Major inconsistencies.
And this is to their own standard, by the way. Oh, Hamas is bad because they abducted children. Okay. IDF has abducted children. Do you condemn them? No. But Hamas raped. IDF has raped. Do you condemn that? Right. And as you go through these series of questions, it just triggers them beyond belief.
Well, that's also one of the reasons why Piers is so popular, is because it's become almost a challenge for a lot of his Muslim viewers to kind of get Piers to be on their side. Like,
That's
hey,
true.
we really want, even though you're super annoying and like we can't stand you, it's become like, which one of our guests is going to stump him?
Who's going to break you?
And some people, and I don't want to mention name, but some people actually came out and said, you know, we think Piers Morgan is actually pro-Palestinian. He's just on the DL, like he can't, like free Piers type of thing. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's, you brought up a good point earlier. It's definitely, I mean, we can't dispute it. Just look at the numbers, and you can go on like Social Blade and see, because I've done it. He had 1.5 million subscribers before the October 7th, a couple months ago. Now he's gained almost 1 million subscribers. So it's definitely about views. It's definitely about popularity. It's definitely about money. There's no doubt about that. But I believe there also is another strong element that Piers Morgan, I wouldn't say he's the smartest guy, but he's not a complete idiot. He's very conniving, as you said. And part of it is he's trying to undermine the Muslim and pro-Palestinian narrative on his program in a unique way. That he thinks, you know, I'll invite all of these people on, and, you know, by the way, his two main things why he can never be anti-Muslim, he can never be anti-Islam, because he didn't agree with the war in Iraq, right? And he also has brought on more pro-Palestinian guests than anyone else. So for those reasons, he could never possibly be anti-Islam, right? That's what he wants to convince the audience.
Exactly.
And then at the same time, he wants to bring these pro-Palestinian Muslim guests on to undermine the narrative. He legitimately believes that he can out-connive the Muslim guests that he brings on, make them look foolish, and, you know, show that the narrative is false, and prop up the pro-Israeli narrative. So those two things, that's what I think his main objective is.
You know how in the Quran it talks about how when they go to the Prophet, the hypocrites would go to the Prophet, they would say like nice things, and then when they would go back to their own friends, they would say, "Oh, we were just mocking them."
Yeah.
It's like that because he goes back to people like Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
It's not like he goes back to and Ben Shapiro, people who are vehemently, you know, they've said everything but that they hate Islam and Muslims. And
I hear, by the way, that he's actually, it's not just on the show. I hear that Piers Morgan is actually very close with Douglas Murray and his likes. Yeah. So, but yeah, go ahead.
No. It's especially Douglas Murray. For those who don't know, he's a super, I guess you could say almost like a white nationalist type person who's incredibly against any form, who sees all the immigrants in Europe as hostile people who are going to ruin the culture of Europe, and would like nothing better for everyone to go away. And he's super pro, which is funny because he's taken a different trajectory from the other white nationalists. Like I can't remember some of the names, but what's his name?
Who? Tommy Robinson?
No, not Tommy Robinson.
Nigel Farage.
Are you talking about British guys? Or?
The name will come to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's taken a split away from the other white nationalists who've said that, you know, if we don't take care of the situation of Palestine, all these Palestinians will come to our European countries. So we're gonna support Palestine, hook, line, and sinker. Douglas Murray seems like he's like bought by the Zionists. He's just spewing all the Zionist talking points. Keith Woods was the name I was thinking about. He's made a huge following on Twitter based on just all the support he's thrown behind the Palestinians.
So the thing about this is it's interesting how these different figures are gaining popularity and notoriety among Muslims, right? It's almost like, and I find that to be very problematic. And me and Jake were talking about this earlier. The reason why these people are becoming popular is because there's a void. Like, these people are giving Muslims a platform to maybe give maybe 10% of what they want to, and because of that, Muslims are so willing to say, oh, they're really pro-Palestine, or they're really on our side, or they're not that bad people, right? But the reality is that we're forced to accept those platforms,
and we're reaching
because we don't have our own platforms. Like
we do have platforms like our.
No, I mean, what I mean, our own platforms, meaning platforms as large as theirs. Yeah. So, for example, like, obviously not Piers Morgan, because that's a whole network, but we were just talking, like, for example, like the PBD, right? That's a self-funded, entirely YouTube organic show that is extremely popular now. And it wasn't like an overnight success. I've been following Valuetainment for years, and it was a slow evolution, right? He had to put his studio looked nothing like that years ago. Like, this was all like effort that he put in over years and years and years, right?
And if you want to see, just real quick, a good example of that, he just recently did an interview with Vlad TV where he goes into his whole story in detail, and he talked about that. He talked about how, like, in the beginning, he had like a couple thousand subscribers, like nobody was really following his stuff.
Right.
And then, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then so what I'm saying is that effectively we're forced to have to say, okay, this is a good platform to get onto. We can kind of hope that they're going to be pro-Muslim and pro-Palestinian. But in reality, the effort that we're putting into these people, we should be putting into our own platforms, right? Like, why can't we grow like TMM squared to like, where you have like thousands of people, where these people now who are offering a different viewpoint are wanting to come on our show.
And that's what I was saying to you. I said, and I said this, I just gave a talk at the masjid with the Islamic Oasis, and that was part of my conversation there, because I gave a talk on secularism and liberalism, and one of the things I was saying is that these ideologies are being pushed down our throat, not only through education but through media. And we need to have our own media platforms that can match them, but obviously we're bringing the truth, and especially to inform the Muslim youth, because what they're pushing is so dangerous. And we should, as you said, and then Sim, you said, but we have this platform. Yes, and I have my own YouTube channel, and many people do, but we should be striving, at least some people, to get to a point where we have our own PBD type of thing. Right. We have the same type of reach, the same situation, Piers Morgan, to where Piers Morgan wants to come on TMM squared. And then we actually can dictate and say, do we want to bring Sim? You want to bring him on or not? We should be having that conversation to see if we want to bring on Piers Morgan and PBD. But I know this is pie in the sky, and some people say, brother Jake, you're out of your mind. But these guys did it. Why can't we? Yeah, we have to think big. Why can't we in the Muslim community think big and get to that point to where, actually, you know what, Pat? I don't want to come on your show. Maybe I'll think about inviting you on my show. Right? Like, and then we can dictate. So it's not this thing where, oh, you just bring me on the whole time and you want to bring me on about, talk about Khmas, and I have to apologize for every single thing they've ever done. That Khmas guy that, had breakfast last Thursday, I have to apologize for that before we can talk about the fact that they're bombing and killing all these innocent people. Like, why are we in that position?
Why are we confined?
And something that I was saying earlier as well, for people that, the small number of people that actually know who I am, I primarily on my own channel had focused on theology and philosophy for the past, 4 or 5 years. But when this thing really kicked off, and we know it's been going on before October the 7th, but I hadn't been paying, to be quite frank, I hadn't been paying as much attention to current affairs and politics and all that kind of stuff, especially commenting on it. And one of the things that I've been doing recently, the past couple months, is been making videos on it, primarily because I realize, wow, these people are such snakes. the likes of, and shout out to Piers Morgan if you watch this later, call me. But these people are such snakes, and the way in which they're using their platforms to push this propaganda, we Muslims need to combat that, right? And yes, what TMM Squared is doing here is great, but we need to have it bigger than that.
Jake,
right?
we tried that. Yeah. We tried it with a few different organizations. The problem is that, at least in our experience, is that what happens, and I don't want to give away any specific details, but people don't want to be associated with certain comments that happen on our platform,
I know exactly,
or their platform, and you end up getting a message saying, Sim, this is it's a great effort that we did together, but some of the guests you bring on, they don't really align with our our message and what the feeling or the kind of tone that we have with our messaging and stuff like that, and stuff ends up falling apart. And bigger problem or maybe one of the bigger problems is that everyone wants to be a king at their castle. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be controlling their format, the way that their message comes up, especially with the incredible breadth of diversity with Islamic views and stuff. People sometimes just don't want to associate with themselves with someone who has a view that's differing from them, that's maybe a bit controversial, and they say, this is just not aligning with my brand.
Especially when they're putting money into it. If they're funding it, the reality is, if they're funding it, they say, well, all right, Sim, you can bring on Patrick Bet-David, but you can't bring on this guy. Or, we want you to talk about this more. We don't really want you talking about that. We can't have that. That's the thing we can't have. We need our own platforms that are not completely independent. I mean, I'm not Patrick Bet-David, so I don't have millions of dollars, but to the point where we have people that believe in what I just said, this basic message. We as Muslims, yes, we have differences, but we need to come together. And I'm speaking to Sunni Muslims here. At least, at bare minimum, from a traditional Sunni Muslim perspective, we can have this basic agreement and realize that we need to come together for the sake of creating these type of platforms and having more control in the media and educating the Muslims to get them to want to watch us instead of these other shows, while at the same time not trying to control every little thing that goes on, right? Not, I give you funding for the programs or, for the show, so now I'm going to dictate the number of shows that you do and who you bring on and what you talk about. And no, we can't have that. We have to get beyond that point to say, listen, yes, we have differences, but if we take the core fundamentals of Islam and look, we're trying to present politics or current events from a traditional Sunni Muslim perspective, and we're trying to combat the propaganda from the other side, we should have enough people that agree with that basic. I know the four of us do, right? But we should have enough people with enough funds to come forward that agree just on that we can find a way to make it work.
It takes a person, and I know it is possible. We have the resource, we have the money, we have people who want to invest in something like this. It takes a person, a larger than life figure like Muhammad Hijab, to get something together like that, where people will be like, they'll listen to him. Someone who has a track record of getting Muslim organizations together or Muslim personalities together, even though they have differing views on various subjects. Those kind of people are the people where people will end up falling in line with it and they say, this is for a greater mission than my own. And ultimately, I think that kind of a figure, if they push that, it can be done.
I think that's one way to do it, right? Like having a larger than life, charismatic person.
Not just charismatic, he's got a huge following.
Yeah, but I mean, again, going back to the main point, right? He didn't always start off with the following, right? It took some kind of effort. It takes dedication, right? Like, for example, we mentioned PBD, a guy like Joe Walsh. No, what's his name? George Walsh.
Joe Rogan.
No. The Walsh guy. His show. No,
Walsh, the right wing guy.
Yeah.
Joe Walsh. He's the right wing, super right wing guy.
No, not the American, not the Chicagoan guy. the guy who did not. What's a Woman?
Oh, Brad.
Something Walsh.
Yeah. I know. What is a woman? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that guy, right? I mean, his channel grew organically, right?
Yeah.
And he's like a full-time network now, right? I mean, in terms of himself production value, but it starts off on YouTube, small little channel you build, and he's not the most charismatic, the most handsome guy, the most, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes when you put out, like, either you have to find a nice balance. If you're someone like a Muhammad Hijab,
Matt Walsh,
thank you, who's very dominant,
sorry, Joe,
and can be and can do all the stuff. It's easy to get him a following. And then there are people who don't have that personality, but they put value into the production. They put value into the content, and people, it resonates. Like, there are many people out there. Like, for example, me personally, I find Lex Friedman to be very boring. Yeah. Right, very boring guy, right? But people appreciate
Good
his
quality,
content, his quality, exactly. And so I'm saying we have to find out what that is. Each person has to figure out what that is, and then based on that, you can grow and have a platform. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm sorry, just one thing: you don't have to have, like, every channel doesn't have to have 100 million subscribers. Imagine if you had 100 or 200 people that have 5 million subscribers each, or 2 million subscribers each. That's still a big, with the unison in the effort, right? That becomes powerful.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but one other thing, and this is another thing we were talking about before, is why is it, you think about this, look, Christians, Jews, atheists, they have all these different think tanks, organizations that are funded where these people are doing it full time. One of the biggest things, and I've been doing dawah for years now, one of the biggest problems that I see is that a lot of people doing this are doing it part time. I mean, look at us. I mean, everybody here, we have our own job. We're doing our own thing, doing TMM on the side. And I'm not knocking that in any way, right? Because I'm been in the same position, but I'm saying a lot of people in this space and in the dawah, sphere, they're doing it on the side. We can't be doing that. We need to get to a point where we have, it's not just about, yes, of course, you need the quality, you need the dedication, you need a couple people involved that are charismatic, that can gain popularity. All of that is important. But one of the key factors in that is being able to pay people full time to do research, to do editing, to what do you call it?
Promote it.
Yeah, promote social media. You need all of these things, and what is behind that? Money. You need funding. It can't be just. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I mean, you could get a guy like PBD that's got millions of dollars and is able to fund all that himself, but until then, we don't have that at the moment. But my point is, why is it the case? Where are the Muslim organizations? And we have some of them, but unfortunately, I would be critical of the ones that we do think we have. Why is it that we don't have what we're looking for, what we're just talking about, where we can pay Sim to be full time to run a podcast like PBD? I mean, I'm here. This is a nice setup. Great. Sim could be doing that full time. Why can't we pay him full time to do that? Why can't we pay the sheikh full time to be doing research and publishing articles and all? We have to get to that point. That's the way in which you do it, because you need people. You need the people, like you said. It will start off small, but if you put in the time and the effort and the quality is coming out, I think it'll be done. I mean, we just need. Reality is, a lot of Muslims don't want to fund this stuff. Yeah. I mean, this is the reality.
And that's coming back to the point we're talking about. Like, see, Muslims, I feel like we are, especially in the West, we're always reactive.
Yeah.
We're not proactive.
That's the problem, yeah.
So when Palestine happens, everyone's, we're on board, we're doing this, we got protests, we got this, we're funding a drive. But that should have been happening long before October 7th or whatever, the whole thing, right? It should be happening long before that. It should have been an organized thing already. And I'm not saying that it's easy to get everybody on board. I'm not saying that at all. But I think what we're saying is that I don't even think that there is a conversation about that. I don't even think people entertain the idea that, hey, guys, why are there non-Muslim think tanks that are advising governments on policies or funding, shows and research papers, and we still don't have a single one? And the one that we do have, a lot of people have issues with, right? A lot of issues with them. Right, they don't feel that it represents them as Muslims, right, as a mainstream Muslim organization, and I think that I think the question then becomes, how do you get people to see the value? Because in all honesty, to get people to donate, to get people to fund something, they ultimately have to see value, either in this world or in some other form that they would appreciate in the next world, right? And say, okay, this is what it is. But ultimately, I feel like, A, Muslims in the community don't see benefit in doing something like this, and B, they don't see the value in return. They don't think, and I think what I would implore listeners right now to is that, like, I'm not making fun of any of our listeners or any of that, but we have 13,000 subscribers, right? Not a large channel, a very small channel, but how many likes do we get on a video? It takes you 10 seconds to hit 2 seconds to hit a like button, and we tell you guys repeatedly that we're not asking for your money. We're not asking for that. I mean, we do, but
we're asking for algorithms.
But what I'm saying is that just help the algorithm.
The least you could do.
Yeah, the least, just hit the like button, because YouTube doesn't want us to be out there. The other media doesn't want us to be out there. The least you could do is just hit the like button, so that the effort that we put forward, other people can benefit from, right? And I think that mindset is just not there with the Muslims right now. And I don't think they're realizing the potential that we have. Like right now, Allah has put us in a position where we were begging for this, meaning that before, 20 years ago, oh man, we just have CNN, we just have this, and the media's killing us, the media's holding down the truth, and Allah gave you Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, everything,
nobody cares about
at your disposal, and now that we have it, it's like nobody wants to take the initiative, the effort to actually fund it and say it.
So what Moore is saying, anybody who didn't like this video yet, y'all need to make Toba and just hit that like button right now. Hit that like button.
Smash it. Guys, so let's switch tracks a bit and talk about some of the common themes that are happening within these interviews that are happening with, whether it's Palestine or some of the recent discussions that you've had, Jake, with PBD, and see, because I went on Twitter and stuff, and I said that that you and Daniel killed it, etc. But people pushed back at me, and they said, you know what, how do you say that they killed it when this answer wasn't as good as whatever question that they didn't like. One of those was, like, for example, the penalty for leaving Islam. Right, this is one of those questions that came up during the discussion with on PBD show with what's the guy's name?
Robert Spencer.
How do you think that response? Because I understand where you and Daniel are coming from in that respect, where you don't want to back down from it, because there's a lot of nuance behind it. There's a lot of discussion around it. But you guys didn't want to go in and explain all that. Talk to us about the reason why that kind of strategy was used on that show.
Yeah, well, I think in that situation, I think it's actually a mistake to waffle around when you're first asked a direct question and give the nuance in the beginning. What you should do, well, this was our approach, is to give a clear, direct answer first, which is a correct answer, and then if you have the opportunity, you go into the nuance and you explain certain things, which we did. We said, look, we're not going around, I'm not going to be the one to kill you. Like, if that were going to happen, dude, I mean, it would have been done already, right? Like, I mean, you could see we're sitting across from apostate Rashida there, and we didn't harm the guy. We didn't do anything to him. So it's not like we didn't provide any nuance. We certainly did. We said this has to be done under a Muslim system, right? It can't just be, it's not vigilantism where me and Mort go out and we just want to kill a bunch of apostates. Like that, we don't do that. Like that's haram. Like, so we did explain that, but people want you to give the wishy-washy, waffling around in the beginning, because when you just answer it straightforward and clear in the beginning, well, it's like, oh, just got quiet in the room. Like, oh my God. So wait, it is a penalty in Islam that if somebody leaves Islam, they could be put to death? And you just say, yeah. And it's like, oh, wow. And like, people are shocked. So, I mean, I believe, especially in that situation, it's similar to the recent stuff with Piers Morgan and Khmas.
I was going to say that because
it's similar to that, because these guys are not that stupid. They've rehearsed this. They've been in these conversations before. They've seen how Muslims have responded. They're waiting for you to stumble around, and they're waiting for you to say, yeah, see, Sheikh, he doesn't want to condemn Hamas. Don't you see that? He doesn't want to do so.
So wait, why would you give a blunt answer with apostasy, but not refuse to condemn Hamas, or try to say like, hey, here's the nuanced answer about Hamas? So what's the difference between those two types of situations?
I haven't gotten in that situation.
You haven't, but
I mean,
like
today,
when you look at other people interviewing, I know it must go through your mind and see like, okay, well, how would I handle that?
I think here's one of the reasons. First of all, you have to understand, a lot of people, I'm one of the people, alhamdulillah, that went on this TalkTV thing today, that's in the U.S. And why is that important? A lot of the other brothers that went on are in the U.K., and they don't have the same First Amendment rights that we do.
Yeah.
There's a law that any even, potential seeming as if you're supporting Hamas in any way, that's a crime. And these guys can be arrested. They can, be put in jail, harassed, all that kind of stuff. We saw what happened with Dilly over some tweet that he put out on that video where the people in Russia where they were greeting the airplane that came
Chechnyians.
in.
Yeah.
So
briefly interrupting.
Yeah.
What Jake's alluding to is the freedom of speech.
Right.
We in America have this. What people don't understand is that the United States is the only country in the world that guarantees free speech unequivocally.
To some degree. But and what I would say, even in the U.S., there's more freedom for me to say, yes, classically, the traditional Islamic position is that if someone leaves Islam, they can be put to death, right? For the most part, the government doesn't really care about that. Why would they be concerned that Jake said that? But if Jake seems like he's saying things that are supporting Hamas, a terrorist group, according to them, that exists today, that is dangerous to society and all this kind of stuff, and he can be influencing other people to go and do jihad and join his groups, they're more concerned with that. They're not really concerned about, the classic Islamic ruling theory is, X, Y, and Z. So that's another reason why Muslims are not dumb. They know that, and therefore they feel more free to state that position clearly rather than living in the UK, dealing with the blowback that's going to come from any appearance of them looking like they support Hamas.
Yeah, I think there's also another key different issue here, right? Is that one is about a position within Islam and another is a political question, right? And there are nuances that you can explore within a political question. When it comes to Islam and our laws, yes, there are nuances, but the outcome is the same.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning that, hey, does Islam have a punishment for apostasy? Is there a punishment?
Yeah.
And in short, the direct answer is yes, there is.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you want to ask me if you're shocked by it and you want to say, oh, why do you believe that? Or how can you be with that? Then I can get the nuances. But if you want me to come in and say, well, why do you...
As soon as you start with the well.
Yeah. Then they think that they're putting you on the back foot and they're making it seem as if you have something that you to defend. Something that doesn't...
You start off with the Hanafi position. You know, there's a difference between the males and the females and, you know, and you start... And it's like, well, but wait, Jake, you're still saying the males and the other schools, right? They don't necessarily make this kind of, like, they're not that dumb, dude.
No,
like,
it's not even that dumb. The environment is set up because you're on your back foot.
Yeah.
As soon as you start off with an explanation and no direct, you automatically look guilty.
Yeah,
and to be honest,
the environment is set up that way.
In polemical debates, and 9 out of 10 times, the things that they're trying to accuse you of doing, especially with Christians and Jews, they're trying to accuse the Muslims of doing. They have it in their books.
Yeah. And that's what my whole that's what my whole point to them was. My whole argument was, okay, this is the Islamic position. Okay, no problem. I'm not denying this is an Islamic position. But you guys have that in your books, right? You have that in the Old Testament. The Christians believe that Jesus revealed this, right? This is God's word. So you can't think it's inherently immoral. You can think that, well, today we don't think it should be applied. So that's a matter of the application of the law and time period, and that's more nuanced discussion. Now it doesn't make like, oh, Jake's this evil guy, and you know Islam is evil because it promotes X, Y, and Z, and it has these punishments. No, and even if you look in the Catholic tradition, and I've done streams on this on my channel, right? Where there's this one video I titled it something like "Greatest Theologian in the West Says That Jake Should Be Put to Death." Because, by the way, I'm an ex-Catholic, right? Yeah, I was raised Catholic. And who was I referring to? Thomas Aquinas.
Yes.
In the 13th century, the standard even at that time in Christianity was apostates were put to death. And not only apostates, right? Just what we would consider deviants, like heretical, heretics, right? So, but Robert Spencer isn't going to tell you that. Brother Rashid or apostate Rashid is not going to tell you that. So that's what my objective there was to say, okay, if you guys think that this is so bad and so wrong, then you probably shouldn't be Christians or Jews either, because this was the traditional Christian and Jewish position. Your God revealed it in your Holy Scripture, and you guys have believed that up until this separation of church and state nonsense. And even if you look at the so-called, they call them casts or traditional Catholics today, they push back, and they don't like this separation of church and state. They want to go back to that, right? And I've played videos on my channel of them saying that. They don't have a problem with the death penalty. And here's the other thing, and this is actually an argument that I kind of agree with, that Thomas Aquinas actually used in his text, where he said, look, we give, and at that time there were different laws, and we still even have it today in some states in the U.S., we have the death penalty. We have the death penalty for certain crimes. Mm-hmm. And we have the death penalty for certain crimes against humanity. Right. Apostasy is not just a crime against humanity, it's a crime against God. Mm-hmm. So from a traditional Islamic perspective, and even a Christian perspective, and this is what Thomas Aquinas said. He said, if we can put people to death for, and I forget exactly what it was, tax evasion or something like that, much less than murder. If we can put people to death for that, of course we can put apostates and heretics to death when they're not only messing with people's, dunya and whatever's going on in this life, they're affecting not only their own, but they're going to affect other people because they saw it more as a society, right? But with the secularism and liberalism over the past couple centuries, it's all about the individual. As long as he has the choice to believe whatever he wants and there's consent and he doesn't he's not really bothering people, it's okay. He can believe whatever. He can believe he's a pink elephant. He can believe whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. But it's a totally different perspective when we have the separation of church and state, or mosque and state today, compared to any other time period in history. And that's what I think a lot of Christians, especially Christians in the U.S., they don't realize that. They see Islam as completely other and evil, and they don't understand their own tradition. So that was what I was trying to show, is like, well, if this is a nullifier of Islam, this makes Islam false, well, then Christianity and Judaism are false.
Jake, a lot of your detractors or people who want to counter that argument would say, Jake, you have to take the optics of just that opinion and combat that, because people in the West, they don't care about all the nuances and all the different thought behind it. They just want you to say, maybe the most, I guess one of the, Sheikh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least the most lenient position related to apostasy is that the crime has to be that they not only apostate, but that they are openly advocating or pronouncing.
Yeah, no, that's actually basic. Yeah,
no, that's basic.
Quran mentions that. The Quran mentions that. Yeah.
That at least from one of the opinions I heard was that that you have to actively undermine the state. That you have to try to use that apostasy as a way to undermine the authority of the state. Now, is that something that can be used in a show like that you had with PBD, where you explain that part of it, where you're explaining the reasons behind what, or at least the rationale behind it, that we're not talking about any kind of individual person who just decides to change their faith, and that, you know,
their own business.
They're wanting to be at home.
Life,
they don't want to mess with anything related to upsetting the order of society, etc.
Yeah, there's no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, the Sheikh would know better than I would, but we can go into all of those nuances. There's no problem with that. But the difficulty that, you know, and I hate to say it to some of the viewers, Monday morning quarterbacks, they don't understand what it takes to go into that atmosphere and deal with that. Yeah. They're throwing 20 different shubuhat at you. Oh, Jake, why didn't you respond to that? Well, if I respond to that, it's going to go down this rabbit trail, and I'm making a particular argument. So there's a lot of strategy involved. Yeah. You have to understand, and this is the other thing. I get messages all the time. Oh, and even besides this just debating thing, and this is just more critical of the audience. Sorry, I have to say this. Jake, why don't you do a video on this? Okay. And Jake, why don't you do a video on that? And why don't you talk about this? And why don't you stand on your head for 5 minutes? why don't you do all? Everybody has their own opinion. Sim might say, well, Jake, you should have done this. Sheikh might say, oh, well, you did it. Everybody, I mean, if I listened to everybody, I would listen to nobody, because everybody wants you to do something different, right? So that's the problem, is everybody thinks they know best. Well, Muhammad Hijab, and this is the thing. Muhammad Hijab, right? A lot of people talking about him. He's a big figure. A friend of mine, shout out to him for recommending my name. I actually appreciate that. That's why I actually got on PBD and this program, because of him. So shout out to him. But some people don't like his approach.
Yeah.
Other people like his approach. He's got over 1 million followers. So obviously some people like it. And the way I personally look at it is, like, here's the thing. Let's take the Piers Morgan thing, for example. And I'm sorry to give him too much.
As you talk about this, can you contrast Muhammad Hijab versus Bassem Youssef?
Because I was going to bring this up. Awesome. This is perfect. Okay. So, and I hate to give Piers Morgan too many mentions, but it's relevant. What can we do? So, there have been so many different Muslim guests that have come on his channel recently, right? And pro-Palestinian guests, and even Norman Finkelstein. So, what has happened is there's been a conversation about, and Piers Morgan has a similar approach with a lot of different people. A lot of the similar questions are asked, so Muslims already know what questions they're going to ask, or what the general tone is going to be when they watch it. So they're waiting. Oh, how's Muhammad Hijab going to answer this Khmas thing? How is Bassem Youssef going to deal with it? How's Muhammad Hijab's approach going to be? Oh, Bassem Youssef. Everybody's talking about it. Oh, did you see how he dealt with it? Bassem Youssef's approach was this he's a comedian. Yes. So he came at it from a comedy perspective, and was using satire, was coming at it from a point of view like mocking the whole thing, kind of even asking the question. But some people love that. Some people,
that's a Western, that kind of message appeals to Western audiences without a doubt.
Some people in the West liked it, right? But other people, like I had a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention his name, but I had a friend of mine that saw the Bassem Youssef thing and doesn't agree with some of his other views, but said he was the best guest that came on. I love that kind of humor, and I love what he did. He totally destroyed Piers Morgan. I think that was the best approach.
And disarmed.
Then I talked to another friend the next day. He said, Jake, you know what? I think he gave a good try, but I didn't like that approach. You know why? Because during this time when our brothers and sisters are being killed, I didn't appreciate that he was using comedy in that way. So what does that tell me? Different strokes for different folks, in the sense that, well, Sheikh liked Bassem Youssef. He liked that. Sim thought it was sadistic. Like, what are you doing, man? Well, I didn't like that. And then same thing with Muhammad Hijab. Some people said, wow, he's a lion of Allah. He came out swinging, and mashallah, we loved exactly what he did, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm just saying how some people would say.
Yeah.
And then other people said to me, you know what, Jake? I didn't like that. He should be more calm. He came off emotional. He seemed agitated. I didn't like how he presented himself. So what I'm trying to say is, and I've been doing this long enough to see this, it's honestly kind of frustrating to me, because trying to convey this to the people watching, a lot of people are saying, probably thinking, you guys are nuts. Like, what are you guys talking about here? I mean, they don't understand this. But I'm saying, when you get into this, you will, that you cannot please everybody. Everybody likes different things, different approaches, different temperaments. Some, like I had at the mosque, I had so many people come up to me and said, Jake, we love your approach. I mean, I'm from New Jersey. In New Jersey, you hold the door open for somebody, you might get slapped. Like, we're not very nice there. But so I don't take crap from anybody, right? I'm kind of have a more in your face approach, where other people are going to be more calm. Like, look how I went at Robert Spencer. Some people say, no, Jake, you shouldn't have been like that. You should have said, you know what, Robert, you've been trying to destroy Islam for a long time, and you. So what my whole point is,
keep it up, buddy.
My whole point, and the way I started to look at it, because everybody thinks their way is the right way, and I'm no different. I'm thinking, like when I went on TalkTV, I think that's the right way to do it today, right? Some Sim kids say, Jake, I didn't like what you did. Okay, fair enough, Sim, right? Yeah. But the way I started to look at it now is, I look at it as a ummah, right? A community, our Muslim community. Some people are going to like Jake. Some people aren't. Yeah. Some people are going to like Daniel. Some people aren't. Some people are going to like Muhammad Hijab. Some people aren't. But together, and with the Piers Morgan thing, we hit him from all angles. So if you didn't like Bassem Youssef, maybe you like Muhammad Hijab. Yeah. If you didn't like Jake, maybe you like Sim. So that's the way that I see it together. I think it's good to have that diversity. Now, I'm not saying, therefore, anybody can do whatever they want and say whatever they want. No, there has to be, obviously, it has to be in accordance with Islam. But if it's just about personalities or approach, it's not like somebody's going against the laws of Allah and saying, oh yeah, this is halal, but it's really haram, right? Then we've got issues. But if it's just about approach, or you should have brought up this topic, or you should have spoke this way, that kind of stuff, I view it now as more of a team. We're working together. And so some people are going to like me, some people aren't, and we all fill the needs of the different viewers.
Yeah.
So there's just a couple things I want to add here. So first of all, one thing the audience probably doesn't realize in Monday morning quarterbacking is that, like, for example, on the issue of apostasy, these guys are involved in polemical debates continuously. Right? Now, I get involved with some polemical stuff, but not in the level they do, but just, even on social media and whatever. But what you say,
we've been in it together, bro. Me and this guy, we've been in some stuff.
But the thing is that what you say can be used against you later on.
Yes.
So if you come out on the PBD show and say, well, apostasy really doesn't mean that and this and that, someone is waiting to clip what you're saying, and then now they're trying to create the next controversy. Oh, big superstar Muslim polemicist says that apostasy is not there and he violates the Quran or whatever, right? They try to create these clickbait titles.
Especially with Robert Spencer. That's his MO.
Correct. And so what I'm saying is that a lot of people listening are not familiar with that arena. Yeah. They don't know how polemics is. I wish it was just academic. That would be wonderful if that's... But unfortunately, the Christians and Jews haven't given us that platform. They've come at us with material that's stupid. Like, honestly, I hate to use that word, but it's literally low IQ. It's stupid arguments that... And they try to catch you on these... What they do is they come up with rapid bullet fire, like fire like bullets right at one point, and then they try to get you to trip up and say, well, no, it's not this, because they're trying to frame a narrative. So the one who is familiar with this argumentation knows where they're trying to go. Like,
people wanted me to condemn Muhammad Hijab's debate with Shmuley, and I said, hey, listen, Muhammad Hijab is an expert in debate. Okay, now could it have been moderated better? Yes, I would say. If Piers Morgan had them to have a better time frame and maybe have them in separate booths or something where their mics get cut off after a certain time period, it would be an even debate. It would be something that you could actually hear or understand what the conversation. The debate itself was poor in general, but it wasn't. I don't think it was Muhammad Hijab's fault.
Correct. And what I wanted to say, that was the next point I was going to add on here, is that I personally feel, I messaged Muhammad Hijab on the side. We're in the same WhatsApp group, right? The whole, anyways, and this is how I felt about it. The reason why he responded that way and he was different the first time around is because he understood what Unholy Shmuley was trying to do. You see,
he started it.
A lot of people don't realize this, but he started off trying to define who are Muslims. It's like, oh, Muslims are people who love Israel, and many people told me to come here and do this, right? He's trying to frame this argument that
so fake.
Whatever Muhammad Hijab is saying against Israel is only the representation of Muslims who are like ISIS, who are radical, who don't know Islam, who are on the fringe, right? So naturally, he's going to cut that off in the beginning. And say, no, this is not what it is. And put them on the back foot.
Yeah. And bro, I'm not saying that Hijab should go tit for tat or whatever. I'm sure, and he's critical of himself, I'm sure he would say there are things that he could have done better in that conversation. He hasn't said that to me, but I'm sure he would. We all do that all the time. But what I'm saying is that, that guy, Shmuley, he started it to the point that, and Piers Morgan, as you guys know, he's no fan of the Muslim Palestinian, pro-Palestinian side. He called out Shmuley. He said, when they were going back and forth and he was telling him, Pierce, you need to control your guest and whatever. He said, as a matter of fact, you actually started it and you've been worse than him. So Piers Morgan was actually defending Muhammad Hijab in that. And I'm not saying that everything Muhammad Hijab did was perfect. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, and I'm not justifying it, but I'm just trying to say that, look, even Piers Morgan, who wouldn't want to do that if he didn't have to, was in a position where he said, like, look, dude, you're not going to press me on my own show to tell me how to run my own show. And in fact, you're the one that started it. And like from the get-go, we're coming after him with these ad hominem attacks. And you've been worse than him this whole time.
And the funny part is Unholy Shmuley eventually ended up throwing out the anti-Semitism word. He's like, remember he tried to accuse Piers Morgan of being anti-Semitic because
that's their go-to, bro. That's their go-to.
And it's just, and I don't even think that he realized that, but it was just so natural for him to drop that language that you're being anti-Semitic, right? And this is the whole problem, that right? And I think I just want people who are not in the media, who don't debate. Anyone who's done even a little bit of polemics will know that there's a certain environment that you walk into, and it is literally like war. Because what you do is it's not just me and you are having a conversation. There are thousands and in some cases millions of people watching this.
Yeah.
And now you have to represent a position, and you can't seem, because part of debating, although it shouldn't be this now, but because it's been this way, that it's about coming off as the dominant and the authority and the person who gets away winning the debate. Right? There's an optics behind this as well too. Right? And so I'm just saying, appreciate that a person who's engaging in that has to consider all of that. What's happening in the moment, coming up with the right response, the optics of it, making sure what they're saying is accurate so it's not used post-debate, right? Things like this are all going on at the same time. Plus, they're also controlling their own emotions. Debaters are human beings, right? They get insulted about Islam just like many of us do, but they are called to be much more composed. Why? Because they're representing something. But they also have. I mean, we get that way. We're like, we just want to say, shut the hell up. You know what I mean? We want to use that language back to them too, but we can't, right? Yeah. Because it's on a different platform. So understand that.
Let's move on to the question of do you condemn Hamas, right? Now, when I think about it, and because I kind of put myself in that position, well, how would I respond to that if I was asked? And I would say, no, I don't condemn Hamas in the sense that, they of any of their right to resist, but if they did, in fact, kill any women and children, any innocent lives, then I condemn that act. Why isn't that an acceptable answer? Why can't we just say it in that clear, concise manner?
I think the problem is that when you say it like that, and it has worked to a certain degree, when you say it that way, then they say, well, what do you mean if? We know for a fact that they have done it. We know that this is what they'll say. I'm not saying I agree. We know for the fact that they have done it. Haven't you seen the videos? Haven't you read Hamas's charter? They want to annihilate all Jews, right? So this is where they start going.
Yeah.
So I wish it was that simple that you just said that and they're like, well, that's a reasonable response. Okay. Well, now I have nothing else to say. So now we can talk about all of the atrocities that Israel has been committing over the past 75 years, right? But they don't, it's not that simple. Yeah. They don't, what's going to come on the back of it? What do you mean if, Sim?
Yeah.
Didn't you see that video? Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
Decapitated babies. Yeah. They broke the pelvis bones.
Yeah. All there are no videos, by the way. They're just the GoPro footage that's out there.
I know. But then when you say that, they say, oh, what are you, conspiracy theorists?
Yeah.
Don't you know about the 45-minute or whatever 50-minute video that's been released to certain people in the media?
When they cried and they came out.
You don't believe any of this? So then what's the point of having this conversation with you, Sim? You don't believe anything they're putting out.
And also, it's a matter of geographic location. Like certain people in the UK and other parts of Europe, they can't be as charitable to Hamas as we can.
That's what I mentioned before.
Right.
So should the UK and the other duat defer their interviews to American duat? And
I don't think so. I think they can answer it but I mean, they can say, listen, we condemn any wrong actions, right? And very straight use that. But I think my personal thing, if I was in the UK or even anywhere in the US, I would say this: I refuse to condemn Hamas unless we're able to condemn Israel for the same crimes they've been doing, that you accuse them of doing, right? Because there can be no condemnation if you are not willing to condemn the other party for doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys something. This is honest. Like I've been thinking about this for a while. I know it's been over 2 months now, and the whole condemnation thing is getting played out, but it still bugs people. It's still kind of
relevant.
It's very relevant, actually. But if we were to start off from just level one, and do you condemn Hamas? No, I don't condemn Hamas. Let's say if you just stop right there. No other clauses, nothing else.
Depends where you live.
It depends where you live. What if, though? How can you build a robust argument just from saying, no, I do not condemn Hamas at all?
So I would
out
say,
on the top.
So I would say this.
Optics, give me 1 second. Because optics are very important. And shock value is very important too, right? What if you just full stop? I don't, because you want that person now to be reactionary towards you.
So,
right?
so first of all, I think you have to be careful because it depends where you are in the world.
It
right?
definitely does.
Because for some people, that's a criminal.
I'm talking about America.
Okay.
I'm talking about America.
So yeah, I mean, I think you can say that, right? But I think you have to be prepared because you have to be familiar with the argument they're going to make. They're going to say Hamas. They're going to refer to the charter. Right. By the way, which most Muslims don't know, in 2017, which updated, which they actually say they accept the 67 borders.
Yeah.
Right. And they actually recognize the difference between.
That's what I'm saying.
Zionists
This stuff has
and
to be
Jews.
known.
Right. But I mean,
you can say that if you know this.
But that's if you're allowed.
They don't
and
allow you
given
to get
ample
the
time
chance,
to explain that. Right. They're going to say, well, you condone the raping of people. Yeah. You condone the kidnapping of children and old people, and you condone like and here's the thing. They'll always say things like this. The problem is they use machine gun tactics, and you cannot address it. They'll say, "Oh, they're using the Hamas. The Palestinian people don't want them.
I understand
they're
that.
using them."
But what I'm saying is, what if you don't fall for? Look, what I'm saying is this. I know it sounds oversimplistic.
But what are you going to achieve by saying that? To my point.
No, you want to get over that point where they just give up on you.
They're not.
No, they will. They'll have to move to something else.
No, what they're gonna do in the same way that you give the conditional if. Yeah. They can say if you didn't see this, and they're gonna bring up all machine gun tactics, all the different things.
I don't believe it.
And then also likewise when you say no, really, Sheikh, you don't condemn Hamas. They cut heads off of babies. They did this to women. They did X, Y, Z, and they're going to bring all. Yeah. And then what would you say there? I would say I don't believe anything.
Okay, forget that. No,
and we saw that on Piers Morgan Abdul Wahid.
I'll give you one more further. They will even go into history. Let's say Hamas threw Fatah members off the top of the building. You condone that? What are you going to say?
I don't believe it.
No, but I'm saying Hamas admit they did it. I mean,
the reason why I said that, guys, look, the reason why I said that is, everyone's been falling for this trap, right? And I really, really believe that Muslims all along, if we just backtrack a little bit, Muslims knew all along that when the people of Palestine were under occupation, any type of rebellion that they actually do cannot be considered, even by international law, cannot be considered an act of terrorism, right? Because they're constantly under occupation. So my idea is, we're not, number one, Joe, the same way you're not going to be able to convince everybody of any tactics that you use in polemics.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to convince everybody and anybody about the whole Hamas thing and the whole Palestine. I mean, look what it took just for people to get a glimpse of what Palestinian life was like, right? But and I don't want to say that a lot of this is just like wasting time, because it's not. It's very important. But I think that there has to be a way of not condemning Hamas at all, full stop, but also bearing the barrage that's going to come, the machine gun tactics, and then bringing about real examples factually in order to disarm them. Because look, in the whole Piers Morgan, I hate mentioning that name, they're trained, they do this. A lot of them, they don't even believe what they're saying.
They've been doing it for years. Yeah.
But for the general public, I think that in order to not condemn and not have to worry about giving clauses and all these other, it's actually very liberating, empowering, that you can move on from that. But you have to be, but you have to understand, like you said about Charter.
Do you know what this?
You have to understand lots of other information.
But you know what this comes down to? You owning a platform.
You're right.
Because they're not going to give you the time.
You're right.
Like we told you, what they're going to say is, "Oh, you condone this is very sick. I want him out of here." Yeah. Like they're going to paint you. I've seen it happen. Like even in his interview today,
they tried to remove me from the show. Did you watch it?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
did you see it?
The guy was
they tried to remove you from the show.
I remember the guy.
The guy was screaming,
"Close it! Close it! I'm going to come over there and do it myself. Close it!"
And actually, bro, to be honest with you, I think that was genuine.
Yeah.
I think after that show, he's going to have a talk with the producer. He's going to say, "Why didn't you remove him from the show?" He was like, "Remove him now. Remove him." You didn't see that. You got to watch it again.
Yeah. No, I was watching my kids while I was watching it.
Yeah. You got to rewatch it. But related to this whole thing, because they asked me the same question. Did you guys see how I dealt with it?
Yeah.
I had a unique approach, but it was related to the specific people I was dealing with. How I dealt with it, I started out from the very beginning on the attack. I said, listen, you are calling for genocide on your own program just 2 weeks ago. You are not in any position to ask me about Hamas or Ku Klux Klan or who shot John. I don't care who you are. You're calling for genocide. You're in no position to question me about any moral position I hold.
That's true. Very true.
Who are you?
What was the guy who was sitting next to him? Was he Jewish?
He's Jewish, Ash.
Yeah.
Ash,
that's his name.
He's Jew.
Okay, so you know another thing, just to say what he's saying. What I like to do, this is an online format when I'm talking to people on TikTok. I say, listen, why should I condemn Hamas? And let's say Hamas killed babies. I said, is that the only reason you're saying? Okay, give me the reason. So let's say they killed babies, they kidnapped people, they beheaded people. Okay, cool. What I do is I have it ready because I have just been doing this so long. I'll give them the exact ICC number and the cases against Israel. Over 300 documented cases of Israel violating human rights, using human shields as children as human shields, right?
I'll kill their own hostages.
Right, exactly. And I'll say, and even now today's doing great. They just admitted to shooting by the whole, they came out and said, imagine this, the IDF commander comes out and says, the whole of the IDF mistaken 3 people to be threatened.
Which means there's a lot more to us. It means the pressure became so much that they had to admit to the 3 so people could not be concerned with the rest.
And
probably got
but what I'm
somehow.
saying is that this also supports the claim that they have killed innocent people.
Of course.
My point is, so what I do is I try to frame it and say, okay, for the very same reasons that you condemn Hamas, I'm going to condemn Israel, and then I'll condemn Hamas. Are you okay with that? And then they get, whoa, Israel's just defending itself. And then they start saying why I shouldn't do it. And they start going, well, Israel should defend itself. And I say, well, how can I start moving it to that way? Why should it defend itself? Yeah. Israel is the occupier. You go back to 1948, the Nakba. And I start grilling them with that. Yeah. Right when you get them to say why Israel, because they can't justify how Israel can bomb and kill people. Yeah. There's no justification for this, especially if they just listed out all these horrible things they just listed out, in which you show the IDF has done the same thing. They can't know that now it puts them on a defense. So you don't even have to get. I never condemn anything. I don't even. And I say if we're going to talk about condemnation, we need to know why we're going to condemn them, and then list them out, and then see. And then I will say if it falls in line, if the IDF does this, then fine.
You just match it.
Just match it.
Did you see all this is you're right.
Because and this is coming down to the thing I said earlier. In most of these argumentations, and this is no different than polemics and arguments they use against Muslims from a religious perspective too. What they'll do is they'll try to frame an argument and they'll say Islam is bad because of X, Y, and Z. Right? Okay, let's take X, Y, and Z and apply it to your belief and your people. Consistent. Right?
Yes,
okay, do you have it there? Okay, so do you condemn yours? And then you'll see how quickly the conversation shifts.
No, but it all comes on yours, the platform.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. In your case, doing it on TikTok or doing it when you're on a stage on Clubhouse and you have some type of control, it's different than if you tried to do that on PBD or Piers Morgan or wherever else. I'm not saying that it's not possible to work, but it would be more difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that comes down to having a platform. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Did you guys see the memes that many sisters have been putting up? It says starts off with like, do you condemn Hamas on top? And it says B, which is a profanity. B, I'm gonna name my firstborn Abu Ubaidullah. Abu Ubaidah or whatever. And I thought it was fascinating because it shows a shift in at least the sisters and how passionate they are.
Yes.
It's a whole different level, bro.
Even though we as we discussed, like there's nuanced discussion about whether you want to condemn Hamas or not, but they're just like full on bring it on, you know.
I think the funniest memes have been of Piers Morgan. Like he'll be on they put him on the meme of him while he's in a hospital bed and he's like, you condemn Hamas. And I saw one that was hilarious. It was like a baby in a stroller and he's crouching down and he goes, do you condemn Hamas?
But dude, you know all of this, the other thing is I'm glad we kept on saying platform and we're mentioning all these podcasts.
It goes back to what we talked about in the beginning.
It goes back to you having your own platform. This is the only way. Because think about it this way. We as Muslims, as the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're hoping we can be in a position of being interviewed where we're confined by the people who control the narrative. Like, imagine what situation that we're in, and we're hoping that we can do, and that's a situation that we are in currently, and we're going to be for a while. But this situation of us seeing Muslims go on other platforms and see what type of hardship that you have to endure, because it's not easy. You're surrounded by people. You're on their network. You're on their everything. Yeah. And this should light a fire under our butt. Like it lit a fire under our butt. This Palestine issue, and Gaza issue, to do so many different things. It should definitely be us as Muslims. If you have the opportunity, start a platform, and if you know people that have access to, join hands, bro. I mean, this is the time.
So just look at what Ben Shapiro did with the Daily Wire. He got some. got some Candace Owens
Yeah.
and Jordan
100%.
Peterson, etc. all on together. And see again, Ben Shapiro, big personality. We hate his guts. Yes, put it out there, but he was able to pull these type of big personalities together, and ultimately you need someone like that. That's why I was talking about Mohammed Hijab being that one person who can rally everyone together. And put them under some kind of umbrella thing. So,
but I'm laughing though. I'm laughing because
I want to know.
In some ways, like there's internal divide between them as well at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Well, because they're on Dawood, that's why.
Well, exactly. But not only that, I like that plug-in, by the way. But the thing is that it's funny how this issue fundamentally has divided even people who you never thought would be divided.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who would have ever thought that Candace Owen and, Ben Shapiro would have a rift, right? And this is part of the issue. And I think the argument that Candace Owens makes is brilliant from a logical perspective. All they're saying is that, listen, this is coming from the left, the pro-Hamas demonstrations, and this is left wokeism in the universities. We've been telling you about that for the last 10 years, about how they're anti-white, and my children are half white, and I'm pretty upset about that. And so now you think it's okay to pull your funding now, when it was our children, it wasn't okay to pull the funding, and that's an irrefutable argument. Like, so okay, we got it. So our kids are not as important as your kids, right. Okay? And so and Tucker Carlson just buys it. He's like, oh yeah, this is phenomenal because he wants white America, and and all these people are buying it up. And it's funny because I've seen this right wing movement on Twitter that's just, they don't like the Muslims, but they hate falsehood way more. Like, they hate propaganda way more. And I was saying, we say this earlier on too, that Allah is leveling the playing field. He's creating the stage for change, because nobody in America, after Donald Trump, everybody hates the media. Yeah. Fake news. All these people don't know what to take anymore. Mm-hmm. And now the same media is telling them about the Ukraine and Gaza and the narrative. They're like, wait a minute. Deep down, they're like, I don't know. This is kind of nonsense.
That's why then they started doubting a whole bunch of stuff in the past, too. It all gets dug
and so this is why OBL's letters started becoming famous on TikTok, right? Because like, oh my God, I'm having an existential crisis, right? Yeah. But the point being is that all of this is for nothing. And remember, the people of Gaza were able to do this, right? But if we don't capitalize on this by creating media, by engaging on social media, by making your voices being heard, by being knowledgeable about these situations, about knowing how to respond, then this is a wasted thing that Allah is giving us.
You're right.
We have to capitalize on it. These times and these moments in history are what define a future of a nation.
Yes, sir.
How you're able to capitalize on these. Whenever we talk about MMA here a lot, right? And there's an MMA fight tonight. I don't know. Don't tell me anything. Anybody? I couldn't watch it because Sim timed it now. But
I will ban you in the chat if you.
Yeah.
Last time they did it, man.
Yeah, but anyways, the point being is that, the whole point is that, that it's those little moments that you capitalize on someone's mistake, and then you're able to pull through, even though you're down and out, you may be dying, and then someone just gives you, I don't know, they give you the arm while they're on top of you, and you get them in an arm bar. That one moment you capitalize on changes the entire result.
You're right.
And this is our moment. Like, we're not on the ground in Gaza. Allah didn't give us the opportunity for shahada. He didn't give us the opportunity to live in that land and be blessed in that land. He didn't give us that. So our weapon right now is our mouth. Those tweets that you put out, those videos you put out, those are your bullets. Yeah. That's your ammunition. Ammunition. If you're just storing it away for a rainy day, there's never going to be a better day to use it. Yeah. Right? That ammunition is going to get old. It's not going to work no more. Your gun's going to jam when you need it. You need to actually use that now. And what does it take to retweet something, or to like something, or to share something? Even putting a hashtag Free Palestine just to get the algorithm moving. Yeah. Stuff like that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. It does. The narrative changes completely.
Yeah, and we've seen that on social media. It has changed. So it's not like, I don't want this podcast to seem like, we're saying all negative things, like Muslims aren't doing anything. There has been success. We've seen the narrative change to the point where, look at what Biden had to say, right? Just a couple days ago. he said, and now it came out, and I brought this up to James Whale on the show, and they acted like they didn't know what I was talking about, and then the producer came in and he was like, "Oh yeah, there is an article. Yeah, Jake's right about that." And so anyway, I brought up the fact that it just came out that they did an investigation on the fact that nearly half of the bombs that Israel has been using are what are called dumb bombs. That go back like to the 1950s type of technology. And so it's really not a surprise when they're not really that precise why they're killing so many innocent civilians. Like, it's not strange why there's a connection between using dumb bombs, which, by the way, if it were the case that they didn't have any smart bombs and they were a poor country and they weren't getting millions of funding from America and the UK and all these other places, then I could say, maybe there's somewhat of an excuse. But no, they have them and they're not using them all the time. So do we have to really wonder why they're doing it? Of course, it's obvious.
The reason why it's significant for our listeners is that dumb bombs indiscriminately kill people.
Of course.
The Israeli narrative is that, we're only bombing Hamas.
Yeah. There's no surgical strikes with dumb bombs.
So
exactly,
dude. Incredible lies that they're just putting out there. And everyone knows. You can see the devastation in Gaza, in northern Gaza, is that they've completely wiped out the city. Yeah. All right? So how is it that Hamas was hiding in every one of those buildings?
And the worst part is the narrative has now changed. It's not like we're going to eradicate Hamas now. Now it's get the hostages, right? Because
they just killed 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny part is that, like, while they're dropping these dumb bombs on everybody, right, Hamas is still attacking them. They're still blowing up their tanks. Abu Ubaidah comes out and says, hey, we took out like 150 tanks. You know, we just walk up there and did it. And he's giving out numbers, right, that they don't want to tell you. And then like, you only believe the Hamas. I'm like, well, you don't allow the media in there. Even the CNN. I mean, imagine how low. I was thinking about this too. And the level of distrust of the American media and politicians is at an all-time low. And even in that moment, CNN has to come out and say the IDF has allowed us to accompany them, but they are forcing us to submit all footage for review before we publish this. Think about that.
Yeah. I want to ask you something about CNN. Yeah. That lady, I forgot her name, who went into Gaza on CNN and had that special going to the hospitals and everything like that.
Was that
Abby Martin, you mean?
No. Just
Christiana. No, wait.
Recently, the blonde lady, dude. She went and talked to, and she's speaking Arabic a little bit.
Yeah.
Why did CNN allow that?
Well, why?
Well, in Gaza, they don't have to worry about it.
It's footage. No, but it's CNN.
No. But in Gaza, you can get in if you're on the Palestinian side without submitting your footage.
I understand. But what communication's happening to Israel through that?
There was no communication.
So look. No. I understand. When that lady went in, and she gave the case for the Palestinians. It's like it's open. Remember when we were talking about the relationship that occurs when America wants to put pressure on Israel?
Oh, in that sense, okay. So America wants Israel to.
This was like that 6 minutes was gut wrenching for people to watch.
Yeah. Sheikh, listen,
and they haven't really done that.
Yeah, Sheikh, listen. Like we mentioned earlier, the media is an extension of the American government, right? So right now, Joe Biden and the Democrats and Republicans, they're all saying, listen, we have to wind things down. We don't have any more money. And there's too much mounting, especially when the world sees that 136 countries in the UN vote for a ceasefire. And you're one of that oddball country that doesn't do it, right? It's pressure. You lose influence in the world. It's having what America media. Exactly, and what America is saying is right now, your war is now it's impacting us, right? It's making things harder for us. We don't want that.
We can't back you up right now.
So you got to finish this up quickly. So if Israel says no, we got to keep going, America says, okay, media, go in and tell the story, paint the picture,
and that's where we are now.
That's where we are now.
I asked about that. Yeah, that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So how much longer do you think that? I mean, I know it's too difficult to say, but what do you project? What do you guys project is going to happen within the next few months?
No. Right now, the Israelis are getting their butts kicked to them. I mean, I think the news are now at least going by Israeli news outlets like the Haaretz. So what they've done, what the Haaretz did was they heard, a few casualties that were being reported by the Israeli soldiers. what they did was they actually went to the hospitals and started collecting numbers of wounded soldiers. Now, they didn't go all the way to all the different hospitals all across Israel. They went to a group of different hospitals, and they found there are casualties that are 69 per day is what they came up with. 69 per day that are severe casualties. They're not like, oh, I got a bullet grazed my arm or something. These are casualties that are involving amputations and stuff.
They're being burned in tanks, bro.
There was another video that was leaked by an Israeli officer who was being recorded telling Israeli a class of Israelis.
Yeah, we're the lions,
and he incidentally disclosed that there's 1,200 Israelis who've already been killed, Israeli soldiers, and he was like, "You guys need to enroll in the army, etc." He was trying to, get them all pumped up, and say that, hey, you guys need to enroll because there's a lot of your brothers are dying or whatever. So, there was someone in the chat who was saying that can the Palestinians win against Israel? And I think the answer is clear. When it comes to asymmetrical warfare, which is what Hamas is doing, the Palestinian resistance is doing, it's just a waiting game. You don't have to lose. You just have to wait it out. All you're doing is hit and run, and it's just a game of bleeding your occupier dry. It's as simple as that. You don't get concerned about how many casualties you get. Because look at what the Viet Cong did to the United States in the Vietnam War. They had the same thing. Americans would bomb them indiscriminately, and then they would go into their tunnels, and then they would pop out, spray Americans with all kinds of weapons. They even had all kinds of traps, booby traps that were set up all across the jungles in Vietnam. And yeah, the Vietnam lost, I think it was 1 million Vietnamese who were killed in the Vietnam War, but ultimately they were able to put up a huge resistance until they bled America out, and they said, okay, you know what, this is not worth it.
I was trying to find this video. There was this one guy, this Israeli special units commander. He was like, "We are the unit of Tigers. We're defending these Tigers. We're going to go in there. We're going to the toughest part of Gaza. We will come out victorious." Blah blah. It was like a 20 man like commando unit, right? And he's been very bold before. And it comes out that TOT was reporting that this guy was actually, his entire squad was killed, and he was ultimately killed as well too. And this is like a squad of 20 elite commandos for the IDF. So the notion that they're just going in there and it's easy peasy and they're going. No. This is far
even
from
their tanks. Okay, so the Israeli tank is called the Merkava tank, and it is one of the most sophisticated tanks in the world in the sense that it's got a trophy system on it. So the trophy system is a system that's system that deploys an explosive charge when a rocket propelled grenade is flying towards it. The problem
like a force field, kind of like a force field.
It's like a force field in any 360 direction.
That's crazy.
It'll detonate a small explosive charge that will destroy the grenade before it hits the tank. Even that has so many different weak points that the Palestinians have found out how to. There's the other areas within that tank that are susceptible to repeated RPG strikes. Granted, you may have to do 2 or 3 different.
That's why I saw the video of the dudes dropping something and then detonating from far away, right?
Or sometimes you'll see a drone. So from the top, the trophy system doesn't work. I don't think it works as well. So you'll see like tanks getting blown up when the drone is dropping a grenade on top of it. There's also videos where you're seeing them targeting a area of the tank that's between the tracks of the tank. So it's a bit lower on the lower side of the tank, and they're targeting. If you see the resistance videos, there's like a red triangle. You'll see them aiming for this specific area of the tank, right between the tracks, and it's a bit lower, below the tank shaft. So they've found incredible creative ways, and that's one of the things about occupations is that whenever an occupier has at least the native population is intelligent, but they don't have food in their stomach, they will fight back to the teeth, and you will end up losing. It's quite visible, at least in previous situations across North Africa with the French, and even in Indonesia as well with the Japanese. You have to keep the at least colonialism 101. If you want to make it work, you have to make sure that they're fat and stupid. The native population, you keep them fat, you give them, make sure they have a lot of food, and they have very little incentive to rebel, because most people, they don't want to rebel when they have food in their stomach and a roof over their head. You keep them fat and you take away their education and keep them dumb. And what you're seeing in Gaza is one of the highest.
They messed up hard, dude. Yeah.
They have incredible literacy rates. They're incredibly intelligent and creative with the household
I think it's second most in the Middle
use.
East out of the Arab countries. I think it's the second most educated.
They have doctors, PhDs all across Gaza. Incredibly intelligent people who work really hard. So for our listeners, at least for the people who are asking in the chat, the fight is not over. They're actually digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole every day. That's why people who are on their side are actually saying, you guys are messing up big time. Like, you guys don't realize how bad this is going to go for you. And what they've done effectively, even if they manage to keep the stranglehold on Gaza and stuff, even if they manage to kick out everyone out of Gaza, they've inspired an entire generation of Muslims all across the world. So even if maybe 100 years from now, you still have Israel. 200 years from now, eventually there may be a navy from Indonesia, who's a first world country by then, who will come at your doorstep and just take that whole place over. Who knows? I mean, you guys can't give up. Like, this defeated mentality is what they're counting on. They want you.
What they've done essentially is that
they want you to get burned out too.
No, not only that. Well, that's what they wanted. But this single conflict has reinvigorated that spirit of Palestine among all Muslims and even non-Muslims. This idea that oppression cannot stand, oppression cannot last. Yeah, you might kill them all, you might go whatever, but the world remembers, and they're not going to forgive you for that.
How long did it take Salahuddin to come back?
Oh man,
is that 300 years?
Yeah, I mean about 300 years, and give or take.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? How long did it take?
After the Muslims were kicked out of Jerusalem.
Okay, I think it was
about 300 years. Yeah, no, about 300 years. But the point being is that it's not only from the Muslims and pro-Palestinian people. The people within Israel are extremely upset at how he handled the conflict, meaning that there's so many. Like, they haven't really brought it out, but I'm sure there are going to be tribunals. There are going to be investigations. Yeah. What information did they have before the attacks happened? What did they do? How did they respond? Why did they use Apache attack helicopters to attack the places that Hamas members were, knowing that there were civilians there? Why did they use machine guns on the kibbutz? Why did they bring these tanks in? Why were there charred cars? Why were they using human shields? All these things are going to use. Why were these dumb bomb used? Everything is going to be investigated. And when they do that, it's just going to be utterly shameful for them. This will be a stain. This is one of the reasons why it's funny.
Something actually comes out of it.
Oh, of course. But what I'm saying is that the Israeli people themselves also are beginning to feel unsafe.
They're protesting there.
Yes, and the whole point of Israel is that it's a safe place for Jews.
Yeah.
Now
probably the most unsafe.
And now it's probably the worst place to be a Jew.
America's much safer than Israel. Probably.
And so I think that combined with, inshallah, like the effort that the Muslims make is going to be, I foresee, like, this is going to be the beginning of the downfall of this Israeli state as we know it.
I agree 100%.
And by the way, that was 88 years, just for correction purposes, after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 80? It was 88 years.
Oh, yeah. Every time it's been less than 100 years.
Yeah.
Every qarn. Yeah, every qarn that happens. Yeah, it's true.
SubhanAllah.
Jake, you were making
no. I was just going to say that... what exactly? What was I going to say now? I can't remember.
It's all right.
About the change in the oppression that's happening. People are coming around.
No. So, the protests going on, they're so upset because the IDF and the Israeli government have basically, their message has been prioritizing eliminating Hamas. not about getting the hostages back.
Yeah.
And especially now. So you asked earlier, Sheikh, what do you think is going to happen next? I think one of the things that's immediately going to happen next is it's all going to be about the hostages. They're going to change the narrative. How do we get the hostages back? It's not about just killing Hamas. And I suspect there's going to be another hostage exchange. I suspect that there's going to be another hostage deal where they say, okay, we're willing to take some hostage back. We'll give you X number, and they're going to have to make a deal because the people have been so upset that they haven't brought the people in Tel Aviv are going nuts that they haven't even really attempted much to get these hostages back. And now it comes out, you guys just admitted it, that you just killed 3 of them. I mean, the guy was walking around with a stick with a white flag, and you just shot these people dead. That's what you think of these hostages? You don't really care about our people. So there's going to be so much pressure on them. They're going to have to make, and now Hamas has the upper hand on that deal. They should get as many Palestinian people out of those jails as they possibly can if they do a deal.
Milk it.
And milk it as much because they have the high ground now.
10,000 for one, baby.
Exactly. You better give us as much as they can get.
And throw some money on top of that too.
But the scary thing in all this, I'm saying for them, alhamdulillah, it's scary for them, is how long they worked to build this narrative up, and it just came crashing down.
Exactly.
It came down real hard. But the reason why I want your insight, which is I think very important, is because you're in a situation different than all of us. You're right now a master's student, right, in comparative religions and philosophy. On that level of academia, this issue has to come in. Like, people aren't always going to be academic and try not to talk about politics, right? How often does this thing come up with you, and like what's the environment with you? Is it? Sorry.
Yeah. No.
Did I ask about something I shouldn't have?
No.
We can switch topics.
Amir.
Oh, my bad, bro.
No.
It's not related to Palestine.
I'm gonna mention this. Look, I brought it up in the car. You know, I'm in a master's program, and it's not just about the Israel-Palestine stuff. I want to make a bigger point that there are extreme biases in academia, and that's somewhat natural. Okay, you could say I'm biased. I'm a Sunni Muslim, so I'm going to present it from that perspective. Fair enough. But I think the problem is that they don't make the biases explicit to their students. So the problem is not necessarily just the way they're teaching it. They don't tell you, hey, look, this is my opinion, but these are the other views. Here's the criticism of my position. It's not really presented in that way. And it's the same thing for Judaism. I have a class on Judaism. Same exact thing, right? They have their own biases. They're presenting the history from a certain perspective. And I mean, that's just the way it is. No matter same thing I have a class on Islam. And I was just telling Mort in the car ride, they have like 4 or 5 classes, and I brought this up to the head of the program just yesterday, actually. They've got 4 or 5 programs talking about 12 different Sufi masters and stuff, and they didn't mention Ibn Taymiyyah once in the entire course. And like, no matter what your view of Ibn Taymiyyah is, like, for him not to even get like parenthetical citation, like he wasn't mentioned once in the entire course, is ridiculous. So and I'm not saying that the Sufis shouldn't be mentioned at all. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the fact that like it was dominated by that, and then there's no mention of Ibn Taymiyyah or Imam Ahmed and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's just ridiculous. So unfortunately, that's the way it is, and it's a big problem because, especially in college, I mean, I'm a bit older now, but and some of the students in my program are older, but especially for like the 19-year-olds, right? I mean, they go into a class on Intro to Islam, and Mort was, I don't know if he wants to mention it, but he was talking about some of that stuff. They're a lot of times being fed nonsense, and the students don't know any better. So now they're going to go and repeat that to their friends or their parents. And, you know, it's just such a big problem. And this is the other thing that I was bringing up actually in the talk, because we focused a lot on media and propaganda, and we Muslims need to have our own
the
platform.
Islamic Oasis talk?
Yeah. Yeah. and we've been focusing on the media element here. But in my Islamic Oasis talk, I also brought up education. That's another big part of it, right? Muslims have to do a better job having our own schools and our own independent educational systems, to where we're actually teaching Muslims what Islam is, and to be aware of secularism and liberalism and these ideologies and why they're anti-Islamic and so on and so forth. And just like the media, I'm not saying we're not doing it at all. We are, but we're not doing it enough. Obviously not, because a lot of Muslims in the West are confused. If they went to this Intro to Islam course, that by then they should already know, right? So they have this sort of radar when these people are presenting garbage that, no, this isn't right, this isn't wrong. I mean, you can go into the class and listen to them, but they would have enough sense and enough knowledge to know that this isn't right. And I think that we're failing in that perspective. We have not focused enough on not only media and having our own platforms, but education. We need to do better at that.
Especially this idea, at least what I've seen in some Sunday school classes that I've looked into for my own kids, was this like, at least when you look at the syllabus, you look at this almost like a cultural Islam, like where you're not being taught like the seerah really deeply, and you know, it's become
stories
like
of companions, and
you're doing art. I'm like, what the hell? Like, art is for like regular school
calligraphy.
No, you're not even doing calligraphy. You're just like
Art class.
Art class. I'm
Art
like,
class.
like wait,
Finger painting.
like I understand like the need. Look, I know. I'm trying to be more charitable in my interpretation of people's actions, and I know a lot of people want just a hangout space for Muslims, okay, for young Muslim kids and stuff.
Yeah, it's important to say that too. Yeah,
but the idea is that you'll have one Sunday, okay? Yeah, one Sunday out of the week where you don't teach your kids at all throughout the whole week. You don't spend any time. You barely spend any time where you're even praying together as a family, and that Sunday you're spending waffling around in other classes. You already have like a recess and stuff like that, and then adding on other courses that are completely separate from the deen. It's just mind-boggling to me that there are people like that or institutions like that are offering Sunday school like that.
What do you think about the idea though? Look, like I have this issue with Sunday school, and this is like which means we need to up our game now, because we've been working on Sunday school since like the 80s. It's cool, it's necessary, but look, when it comes to Sunday school, there's a mindset where automatically, whether you're old or young, everybody doesn't like Sundays. Nobody wants to do anything on Sundays. And when it comes to going to school on Sundays, you're like, dude, forget that. I want to have nothing to do with that. So the student is already coming in with the mindset. The parents are already coming in with a separate mindset when they're dropping their kids off or bringing their kids in. The kids come in with a mindset like, I just got to get through this horrible, depressing, gloomy 3 hours of my life on Sundays, which I hate. I just want to be at home. And the parents like, man, I hope that this is going to help this kid, but I just got to drop him off here, right? And it's like it's a crazy recipe for disaster. Since we're talking about education, I think that we really, really need to like yesterday come up with a very, very simple way, non-abrasive way of Islamic education, which is piecemeal, and it doesn't have to do with Sunday.
So I think here's the issue: kids are never gonna like learning.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. They even make the same gripe about traditional school. I gotta get up in the morning at 6. Whatever.
Yeah, but Sunday's different though.
No. Look. Wait, hold on. It's any day. If you replaced it with a day of the week, it's still gonna be the same thing.
We
about
were
learning.
all in the same position. When we
you
were
never
kids,
wanted to learn. That's not something kids want to do. They have many other things they want to do. They want to play Fortnite. They want to do Roblox. Whatever. They don't want to learn. Right. That's something that's inherent to all children for the most part.
Of course, I agree.
So the point is not that. Here's what I find the problem is. Sunday school is not enough. People use Sunday school as a glorified babysitter.
Yes.
Right? They are shifting the burden of educating the children onto somebody else, when in fact Sunday school should just be a supplementary thing.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the main place where your children learn Islam.
Very true.
And the problem is that people don't know the religion themselves, so they're forced to send them to Sunday schools so they can grow up with values that they don't really. They may have gone over it back in the days, but they don't really remember it and whatever, because it's not something they review as a family. And so the problem is that Sunday school is there because you don't do it at home. If you actually did it at home, you wouldn't need any Sunday school.
That's true.
Right? But we can still have that for congregation and meeting and all that stuff, right? No problem. But the reality is that they're not taking the initiative to be parents and to teach.
It's
and
generational.
Exactly.
But we have to find a way to break the cycle.
Right. And so what I'm saying is I would say this. If you are doing a Sunday school, I think there's one key thing that you can do, and if you can get this point to that child, you've done more than half the job already. And that is to be proud that Muslims are unique. If you can say that, just communicate the point that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to be radically different than all of the people around him. He came to challenge everything that they did and call them to a better way, and that the way he had was confidently better than everybody else. If you can one thing I love about America and Americas is that the American exceptionalism. We could be the biggest losers in the world by anything, but we're America.
Yeah. We'll tell you that we're the best.
We're the best, right? And that attitude needs to be for the Muslims.
Yeah.
We're down in Afghanistan, we're down in Palestine, but we're the best.
Yeah.
Challenge me, tell me otherwise, and we're going to war.
Yeah, that's gangster dude.
And I think if you can give them this fundamental core belief, because the stories of the Anbiya, we all learned that as a child, but I had to revisit in my adulthood to really understand it.
But naturally, that's supposed to
happen. And they will go through that, right?
Yeah.
But that core essence of being a Muslim and saying, yes, I am different. Allah gave me something special. I am better than a kafir. That statement alone bothers many people.
Oh, yeah.
I am better. The worst Muslim is better than the best kafir. That statement alone should be not controversial.
That's true.
It shouldn't be controversial at all.
Yeah.
But I'm saying instill that value.
How can you call them kafir,
in your child?
bro?
Exactly. They're Ahlul Kitab, bro. They're not kafirs.
They're
Right?
just non-believers.
No, but you see what I'm saying? If you can effectively communicate that, that builds the identity of a child.
Yeah. No, and I know. I agree with.
Makes them feel better than Kafir Keith.
Oh man,
my wife had a dog. Her mom bought it or something, and I didn't. This was before we were married, and I talked to her about the dog, and her dog's name was Arthur, but I was always called it Keith. So eventually I just called it Kafir Keith.
This is so weird.
So have you heard about this new thing? So Sim has a child named, we call him Baby Noah, but he's like this half white child, right? So Sim came up with this great plan of like trying to hide him from the public, and then like bring him out when he's old enough and say he's a revert, right? And then like people like get him,
but teach him all like the discourse and everything, so he's like a ready revert.
Yeah, no,
but then
so
we have like someone like Jake who gives him the shahada.
Yeah, and then, but the funny part is like in the background,
optics.
It's like Batman in the background. He's being trained, he knows everything, right? He's doing a whole different life, but he's really down, he knows everything.
You
but
just
then
ruined his plan, dude. It's out now. It's the whole thing.
It's out now.
No, we're gonna delete this episode later.
No, the young
Cut
people,
this out.
No, the young people don't listen to us, so we're okay. We're old guys, right? So by the time he gets to be like 30, 25, whatever, right? It's all long gone, right? But he's gonna come out and be like, guys, I'm a revert. Give me the platform. And he knows exactly what he's going to say.
We have Jake. He comes on the Muslim Metaphysician podcast for our show. And he gives his shahada. And then he's like, you know what? How about you start your own show, Baby Noah?
Baby Noah! Baby Noah!
And
it reminds me of Talladega Nights. See, I love Baby Jesus. You like Baby Jesus?
That's where he came from. Yeah, that's where we call him Baby Noah.
Sim likes this whole Baby Noah concept of his because he wants the life of privilege, and he thinks he's gonna get it.
White privilege.
And what's actually gonna happen is they're gonna look at Noah like, dude, get the hell out of here. We want to chill with this dude.
So he doesn't understand the difference between his name and we call him by his Arabic name, No, and No. because he's always
That's such a conundrum.
he's always walking around like no, like he's so confused because we say no, and he thinks we're calling him, and he's like no, and he's like, look,
What a conundrum!
he's constantly like destroying crap all across the house. He's got this white privilege out of control. He thinks he can throw his bottles at the TV, and I'm like, oh my god, that TV's gonna go soon.
He sent me this video of like a prison break. Like he's sitting there like on the corner rocking this like playpen, and he's like literally just demolishing it, hopping over like
he smashed the border.
Dude, you have to.
He's a border smasher.
You have
Free Palestine.
You gotta keep enabling him, bro.
Yeah. Anyway,
Subhanallah.
Jake, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. I'm so honored that you came and visited us and gave us your time on our humble, small platform.
Alhamdulillah.
Some call us a cult.
The alt bros.
We've made such a small niche. I know, like Jake's like being generous with. He's talking about building coalition. Nobody wants to build a coalition. They think about us as like the last, like B-roll, the DC celebrity.
D-Squad.
The Khatib canceled. Someone find the guy from the Madman Luke.
Not me, bro. Look, when I found out I was coming to Chicago, I said I gotta go to the Madman Luke.
Oh man,
Thank you, bro.
No
That's
question.
very generous of you, bro.
Seriously, no question about it.
Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah, man.
Sim was just happy that we had another white Muslim here because that's what he thinks is gonna make him popular.
Bro, we got the coolest.
Well, after
collection
this, I'm gonna give your son a bunch of tips.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah.
we got this WhatsApp group going with like the coolest group of white dudes who have become Muslims. Like they've literally taken over the whole chat.
Yeah,
I know.
They're
I'm
awesome.
reading this stuff, and it's like this whole thing about like, I'm an ex-military guy. I'm this. I'm that. And I'm like, oh my god, what happened in the chat, bro? I can't keep up, right? But they've taken it over.
Yeah,
like,
bro.
And I'm like, oh, cool, man. And Sim's super happy.
I love whites.
He said it straight up, I love whites.
Is that wrong to say?
So that's why you invited me.
Yeah.
That's actually why he invited you because he feels so happy.
Oh, so someone's gonna come out and say,
Of course, we're kidding.
brown men, racist brown podcast, your typical brown man. You know.
No, of course.
No, we've had people say that. Like, I'm not gonna listen to this podcast. A bunch of brown men talking about stuff. Privileged brown people. All right, whatever. dude.
We're open to every race. Like literally, if anyone's around here in near where we are, they know who they are.
Yeah.
Aren't we pretty? We have a pretty open door policy.
I mean, I went to the mosque today and I had like Mexicans, Hispanic, black people come with me. They see the Arabs.
No, I mean at least that's the Madam Luke's. We're pretty open to every kind of ethnicity.
Yeah,
aren't
I don't care.
Yeah,
It's about
yeah.
it. I don't even think about it.
We don't even
Like,
talk about
our
this.
own-
I don't even think about it either. Like,
we don't even care about your celebrity, like whether how many followers you have.
Yeah.
We're like, just be
if
entertaining.
you're cool and you're entertaining, you have a conversation. Alhamdulillah, bro. Let's chop it up,
Yeah,
bro.
for
That's
sure,
how I
bro.
look at it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Anyway, again, thank you again, Jake, for
Yeah, dude, this
coming
was
and
good,
visiting
bro.
us.
Thank
We're
you,
so
bro.
happy. And I always, whenever it pops up, Muslim Metaphysician gone live while I'm working, I just pop in and watch you.
I feel bad for you.
So your chat's wild, bro.
I know.
He's not listening to the content. He's
I
looking
know,
at you.
dude, no, that's
He's not listening to the content. He's looking at you.
That's a crazy thing, though. No, I want to say that. Like,
He's taking notes.
I
He's
know,
like,
like-
I gotta tell Noah.
how did the white guy do it? Like, yeah, no. But the thing is, like, no. But I just want to say this. Like, it's so weird. I go in this chat, right, and like, people say the most randomest. I feel like yelling at them, like the dumbest things, like, "Oh, brother Jake is live. Where'd you buy your shirt from?" Like, what? Like, you know,
I don't even read the chat.
Do you
You guys
like
see me
pizza,
on my
Jake?
live
I
streams.
know.
I don't deal with it because
You're like talking about something serious, like Jake. Do you like pizza? Like what?
Jake, is pizza really Italian? Like, I'm just stupid things, like dumb
crazy,
things.
man.
And you know, and sometimes the worst.
And I don't even have moderators. That's probably.
I know. But the thing is, like, honestly, I'm kind of like you. I hardly read the chat
Yeah.
unless
I
someone
can't be
posts-
bothered with it.
It's
man.
just too
like-
much, man. And to be honest, for me, I feel like, look, I'll be honest. Even on social media platforms, when we have debates and discussions, I refuse to engage text trolls.
Mhm.
Like, if you
course,
really,
yeah.
if I'm speaking, come speak to me. If
Yeah.
I'm typing, type to me. If I'm speaking, come speak to me. That's how I'm gonna have a conversation with you.
That makes sense.
I'm not gonna respond because first of all, it's unfair. I can just blast you on the microphone and you're on text. You can't type fast enough. It's just not a fair way. It's not a real way to have a conversation.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
I get it. There's people who offer nice messages of support and stuff. Great, but I'm talking about the ones that actually want to debate something.
Yeah.
They want to hide in the chat. Like,
Yeah,
what's
it's
wrong with you,
stupid.
dude?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's dumb. But anyways, yeah. But anyways, guys, listen. Before we end the show, Listen, guys, we've got a TikTok channel now, but we need to get it to like 10,000 followers because then we can get the stream key and we can stream the TikTok from our computer here. But TikTok doesn't think we're famous enough right now. I don't know why we got Baby Noah, but we're not famous enough. So we need you guys to go over to Madman Luke's at the TikTok application and just follow us. I mean, you already follow us here, so we have like 14,000 people here following us. I think if you all went over there and followed us, we could have a bigger outreach. Social media is changing. YouTube used to have a stranglehold on stuff, and it's no longer the case. TikTok has been a great avenue for Muslim content creators, including on the issue of Palestine. There's much less censorship on there than on YouTube. And I mean, YouTube has definitely downplayed their the attention and the algorithm. They've toned it down for Palestine, and we see that very clearly. But TikTok is still very much allowing it, and so we want to be able to pump out this content for people other than just the YouTube world. So please go over to TikTok and just follow us.
Just go and follow the guys.
Just follow, please.
What are you doing?
I have to beg. I gotta beg them.
I know, man.
Yeah,
just go and follow them. Or
the life of a Muslim content creator, begging people just to like and share.
Guys, we gotta also get people to go on to Rumble because we can't. I think we're compromised if we stick to a platform like YouTube.
I know. Yeah.
I think many of our listeners have been messaging me, "Hey, why aren't you guys streaming?" You've been saying it as well, but there has to be worth the effort, right? You gotta people have to start visiting Rumble as well, and
but I think at the very least though, now's the time to capitalize because when you're the first initial starting, like people who are on YouTube early on, they capitalize because you're the name for Islam. And a good thing about Rumble is that there are a lot of alternative people, news people. Who don't trust YouTube, who are looking for content. They see our content, it helps strengthen it. I think the biggest problem with Rumble was that I don't think there was a live function, but I think they've done that now. So you can actually go live on Rumble now.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure out the back end, how to stream to multiple channels and stuff. So,
and subscribe if you're watching now. I mean, you know what's crazy, just to add this in right before we close, it's like, even people watching my streams is like 70% of people are not subscribed. Like, what are you guys doing? Subscribe. Honestly. I mean, and if you're subscribed to me, you should be subscribed to the Mad Mamluks. Like, what are you guys doing? I don't understand.
Yeah, man.
Or just unsubscribe to me.
We have a few different shows coming up. We have a show with Imam Tom Fashin coming up as well this week, and a whole bunch of episodes we're partnered with the ICNA convention that's happening in Chicago next week, and they're going to be sending a whole bunch of their guests as well to our studio, and we're going to do some kind of joint.
Man, I missed out on a bunch of that, man.
Oh, you're good.
23rd, I'm out. I'll be back on the 30th.
Me and Sim will hold the fort down. We'll do it.
Allah yarhamu.
Allah yarhamu? I'm not dead yet.
Oh, I thought you were...
He's the most horrible at Arabic, but just random Arabic phrases. That have nothing to do.
It's part of my routine. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.